Hey y'all, so welcome back to Cdiggi Talks, and do not worry, this episode has nothing to do with the current election. So if you're not familiar, Cdiggi Talks is a show where I bring one of my good friends on to talk about a topic of my choosing. And today's topic is about genetics in regards to the Black community, as well as the podcast that I work on that is In Those Genes. And I am with the creator of In Those Genes, one of my best friends who I've known for 19 years, going on 20, Dr. Janina Jeff. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. I got some smart friends, y'all. I had Jared on last week.
Oh, Jared.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. We met fifth period.
Right. So first I want to let y'all know how I met Janina, because we just go way back. I met her 2001, sophomore year of high school, band class, right?
Yep.
Right. And geez, I am just a totally different person. After meeting her, she has changed my life. Y'all don't even know the half of it. So yeah, I am so glad for her to be in my life and joining me. So give us a rundown of your credentials.
So my name is Dr. Janina Jeff. I go by DJ Squared on Instagram because doctor is cheesy. I've known Chris for 20 years. Like he said, we met each other in band camp. He stole my science project and we became friends. No. We were friends long before then. I would say it's so funny because most of my close friends, what connects us is music, and music definitely connected you and I. And a lot of my friends, music is our love language. So I am a human geneticist. That means I study the genome in humans. And if you don't know, the genome are composed of 4 letters that make up who we are. I mean, the genome is literally our guide to life and make up every unique part that makes us beautiful and varied in so many different ways. And so I studied that. And I started that journey by going to Spelman College, which to not talk about politics, but it is also the place that Stacey Abrams came from, and a lot of other beautiful, amazing women. Yes, Spelman. I even got Spelman on. So I went to Spelman for undergrad. I rep Spelman really hard. I don't rep however, Vanderbilt that hard, but I went to Vanderbilt for graduate school. And at Vanderbilt, I got a PhD in human genetics and a master's in applied statistics. And when I was at Vanderbilt was when I really started to realize that science and genomics is largely kept away from Black and brown communities.
Mm-hmm.
But as a scientist, I didn't really know, what could I do? And what I was doing then was just understanding how genetics impacts our life from a health perspective. And so I started with studying cardiovascular disease, why do we get heart disease more than other people? And that was a simple question. And then I started to look at more women study phenotypes. So why do Black women develop uterine fibroids compared to other women? And then it became really clear that I had a strong quality. I'm somewhat extroverted. So me and Chris are very compatible. I'm the extroverted. He's the introverted, extroverted person. And, but my extroverted personality and public speaking skills that I had learned in graduate school and in undergrad really turned out to be something that was missing. And so I've been leveraging, my ability to do public speaking and also my writing ability to bring genetics to us, to make genetics accessible. And so I am so grateful for Chris because Chris takes all this complicated genetics information and
we'll get to that. We'll get to
that. Okay, all right.
But first I want to ask, why is it important for Black people to be interested in genetics or just interested in our DNA?
Yeah, so it's important because of a couple of things. So unfortunately, systemic racism has made health disparities a thing. The underlying underpinning of health disparities, and it's just this idea that certain populations suffer from health conditions compared to other populations. And a good example of that is the virus. And so it's important for us to understand our genomics because a lot of us confuse our, our health conditions with them being 100% genetics. I mean, how many times have you heard, oh, she got the sugars from grandma, grandma had the sugars and now you got the sugars and we all got the sugars, right? Or that, I just like chocolate cake. My grandma liked chocolate cake. We always are trying to make these grandiose connections with our family members and calling it genetic. And so it became really clear to me that we don't quite understand. And when I say we, I don't mean just Black people. I mean non-science people understand what exactly genetics is and how things are inherited. And so that is one reason. But why is that important? If we understand genetics, we can understand our future. People are living longer. We are developing medicines and healthcare that is really impacting the quality of life that we have. People are living longer than they've ever lived. And as we continue to age, we're going to live longer than the last generation. And so if we use genetics, we can understand things like, will I develop Alzheimer's disease at 35? And if I know I'm at high risk of developing Alzheimer's disease, I might live my life differently. If I'm at high risk for developing type 2 diabetes, I might live my life differently. And so the way we use genetics to impact how we plan to live our future lives, make sure and really make sure that Black and brown lives are here in the future. And we don't talk about that enough, right? We talk about our ancestors, and genetics is largely, marketed towards who our ancestors were, because slavery, ripped it all apart. But we really need to understand genetics because we're trying to be here in the year 2050. We try to be here in the year 3000, 350, right? And to make sure our Black asses are here, we got to understand genetics and how genetics impact that, because we want to live longer too. And we're not going to let systemic racism get in the way of that.
Right. And you recently did a TED Talk. Like, I feel like, was it this year? Because this year feels like it lasted 5 years. Was it this year or last year?
It was last year.
Last year. I had the great opportunity to watch her TED Talk and just give a little brief description of what your TED Talk was about.
Yeah, and I didn't mention this in your last question about why we need to understand, why it's important for Black people to understand the genome. So my TED Talk was entitled Afrofuturism and the Power of the Genome. And it was really centered on how we can use our genomic information as a tool for generational wealth. This idea that we have African descendants have more genetic variation than any other population in the world because we are the oldest population also means we have more information. If we have more information, we can leverage that information to make drugs. We can leverage that information to advance medicine. But the problem is we need that to do those things, but Black people aren't being paid to do it. And one good example is Henrietta Lacks. I have a picture of her. I don't know what my fingers are doing right now, right there.
Henrietta Lacks.
Henrietta Lacks. But we are all Henrietta Lacks, right? 23andMe sold their data set for $300 million. So our data is valuable. So us understanding genetics, we understand how valuable our genomes are, and we can start to leverage that information as a tool for generational wealth.
Now I just want to talk about the podcast and those genes, what I'm, hawking right now. Hopefully you get the t-shirt line, because these are some really nice shirts. I love it.
I know.
Quality,
I gotta put them up.
cute logo.
Yeah.
But tell me the journey, like quickly if you can, but just tell me the journey of in those genes. You can include me in it, like, because I'm like, presenting it, your baby,
Why the bread and butter.
Right. So this started out as like you won a competition from Spotify, right?
Yeah, so in 2018, a friend of mine was like, Spotify has this ad, they're looking for women of color in podcasting and they're giving $10,000. And shit just blew up on Black Twitter. So every Black woman podcaster was like trying to apply to be on, to get in this program. And a friend of mine told me about it. He was like, you should do a podcast. And I was like, what am I going to do a podcast about? I'm a scientist, blah, blah, blah. He's like, do a genetics podcast. I went to bed and In Those Genes came to me. I got up the next day to see when it was due, and it was due that day. I was like holy shit. I wrote the application, and out of 18,000 people, we were one of 3 winners. And that's how.
God. Out of 18,000 people.
Yeah,
They chose
18,000
3
people.
podcasts, and yours was one of them.
Right.
And this was
Yes.
on short notice too.
Yeah, this was, so I applied, I think, late March, and we found out early May. And then I pitched in July. And then that's when it was like,
And of
done.
course, y'all, if y'all didn't know, like in those genes, like it takes from the Genuine song, of course.
A lot of
Clearly,
people don't be getting that. Like, super young people don't get it, and definitely non-Black people are like, what?
right, exactly.
Yeah, so that's how it started. And at the time, I had no one. For a short period of time, I had a co-host, and that didn't work out. But for the most part, it's just been me. And then Chris, one of my best friends, came along. And Chris has always kind of been a part of the podcast. And then I met Sam.
When I first came out, just like, this is so amazing. Congratulations. Like, if you need any type of help, I would love to be a part of it, in any type of way or capacity. I remember we used to go to those recording sessions. It would just be me and you.
Yes.
Before we met Sam, that we're going to get to right now. But yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, Chris was like, I'll just come and help you record. I'll listen to you. Even when I don't know if you remember this, Chris, but like when I was pitching at Spotify, I was like, Chris, record yourself saying why all Black people got to be tall. Or why, just because I'm Black, I can't play basketball. Like, it was literally a part of my pitch. So you've been here from the beginning. And I knew that I always needed you because you are the pop culture guru. You always know everything that's going on. Your streets beat, your ear beat to the streets. You beat to the streets. You be knowing all the things. You be watching all the shows, and I'll be watching none of that shit. So I don't be knowing all the stuff. But like, most importantly, like, it's really good to have non-scientists on the team because you guys, and understanding how, whatever it is we're trying to communicate, if you can't understand it and make it enjoyable. People tell me all the time, like, I thought this was just going to be an educational podcast, but it was actually entertaining. And part of the reason why is because of you, and because of Sam, and because of our other person, Chad, who creates the music for the show. And so Sam is our lead producer. She writes a lot of the scripts, co-writes a lot of the scripts with me. And she and Chris translate this complicated science that I write into something that is actually enjoyable and fun and useful. And so,
yes, Sam is amazing.
And then Chad comes in.
No, I thought Sam was a witch because it's just like, how did she do this? Like, because I remember when you filmed the first episode, you were really like just nervous about how it came out, when you recorded the first episode.
Oh, I remember that. I was crying because me and you left, and I was like, I'm so mad at her. Like, I'm horrible at this.
And when I heard it, I was just like, oh my God,
That's why she made me read this sentence 50 times. That's so funny because that first recording session with Sam, I went in there like thinking that I was just going boom, 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 read this one time, we're going to be in and we're going to be out. And it was like, nope, go back, read that. No, go back, read that, change the tone on that. And I was not familiar with that. And I left that session in shambles. Like, fuck podcasting.
I remember.
I am not cut out for this. I want to cry. I just don't think this is going to work out. And I'm so grateful for y'all being patient with me as I've learned. And and just so y'all know, Chris will be up 3:00 in the morning, late with me, recording, telling me to run it back. So thank you.
Oh, but yeah, you're welcome. So what about Chad? Like, Chad is our music producer, correct?
Yeah. So you and Sam, translate the science, make it relatable, make it fun. We do these pop culture analogies, Black culture analogies. And then Chad comes in and says, oh, okay, we talking about couch surfing? Bet. I'm going to make a song that sounds like swag surfing. And we going to put that on top of the story that you going to tell. So Chad comes in and he takes all the music. Because, like, when we talk about Black people, and we talk about our joy, and we talk about how we do everything with culture. I mean, you can go on Instagram right now, and there's like 50 memes right now about Kamala. Yes. I mean, we got so many videos that literally have popped up in seconds of Kamala up here rapping all the freeway, everything from Philly. She is a Philly John at this point. So we take this Black culture and we amplify it and we make it a part of our story, no matter how bad the shit can be, we will find the joy in it. And a lot of that joy comes from music. And so Chad comes in and he takes the music and puts it on top of all this stuff, and it just really turns it into, you know, a Black ass time.
Yeah, gumbo.
Gumbo, you know?
So the first season is out, y'all. You know, if y'all want to listen to it, it's on, you know, Apple, Spotify, etc. What is season 1 about?
So season 1 is centered around genetic ancestry testing. And we did that because when the Black community, we are largely marketed genetic ancestry tests, and we see that as an entry point to understanding genetics.
And it's like, how many, it's a 12 episode season, right?
12 episode season. What's your favorite episode, Chris?
My favorite episode is definitely the hip hop battle between Black ancestry. It was the two Black. Yeah, that was my favorite one.
Yeah, so we did a rap battle with 2 of the Black-owned genetic ancestry companies.
Mm-hmm.
And that episode actually was recognized as a top 50 podcast episode of the year. We were number 11.
And speaking of that, I wanted to say, like, what has been the aftermath of you, like, pushing out this baby?
Listen, you know, and I've been really low-key about it. I know, like, Sam probably is like, we need somebody to market this because this is just great. Everybody needs to know about this. And it is great.
I agree.
It is great and it's amazing. And we have struggled with getting that message out there, but as soon as it hits someone's ears, it goes gold. And so many podcast critics, you know, find our podcast, and we've made so many national lists from New York Times to IndieWire.
The New York Times.
And we didn't even know, you know, like people are really interested in our show. And as soon as they hear it, and this is all people, they know that it's something special, and it truly is. And so it has just gotten way more accolades and recognition than I could ever had imagined.
Right.
And in fact, our awards are a huge part of funding now. Yeah. So, you know,
people can still fund it, right? You have the GoFundMe up.
So we have a PayPal in which you can do one-time donations. We also have a Patreon, which you can become a monthly subscriber.
Okay. Well, make sure you send me those links so I can put it underneath the video, y'all. I'll have like the links where you can, you know, find the podcast, where you can follow Janina, etc. What else I wanted to say? I know like the award that you had with the ASHG. Yeah, that was a great award.
Yes.
Of course.
And we just got our first international award.
Yeah, amazing. So I know we're currently working on season 2 now. And why don't you let them like just get a sneak peek of what are we going to be talking about for season 2? Because I'm very excited about the subject matter. I think it's really fun. A lot of people are going to like love hearing about it.
Yeah, so season 2 is all about what is genetic. So earlier we were talking about how like people think, oh, I like chicken noodle soup because grandma liked chicken noodle soup, you know, and we're trying to understand like, are things really genetic? But most importantly, there are a lot of things that have been associated with genetics in the context of race. And we are exploring the themes. We're exploring those themes. So the question we're asking in every episode is this thing genetic? And then we're going to do a deep dive into why it is or why it isn't genetic and how it's been socialized and associated with race. And so examples of that are like Black don't crack, right? Like a lot of people believe that aging and successful aging is genetic. Is that true? Is race genetic? We talk about this in the beginning. Race is not genetic. Race is a social construct. But there are some things like skin color and hair that people question all the time. Well, if you're lighter, you are typically white. And if you're not, you're typically Black. So if it's not genetic, explain that to me. So we're going to be tackling big questions like that, or that like intellect and intelligence and IQ, and how Black people and white people have different levels of measured intellect. Is that genetic? And what the fuck is intellect anyway? So like, we're going to be talking about all of those things.
So yeah, I'm excited for season 2. And I guess just to end this, like, I know you talked about a little bit in the beginning of our little interview, but what would you like to see for the future of genetics in regards for Black people?
So I would like to see Black people engaged in scientific research at all levels. That means that we should have pop culture science shows on YouTube. We should have pop culture reality shows. How come no one has made a reality show about PhD students? I don't know. Maybe y'all don't think it's interesting, but it is interesting, right? We should have, science should be integrated in so many places because scientists are artists too. Scientists are creatives too. And we need to make genetics and science normalized. Just like we are all learning about the elections and politics because people are making it accessible and you can't go on Instagram or any other place. You can't go anywhere and not hear about the elections. Right. We need to do the same thing about science in different capacities because like I said, it is our livelihood. The reason why it's not like that right now is because if it's kept away from us, then we can't benefit from it. But if we have access to it, we can benefit from it. We can be here in 20 years. We can be here in 100 years. We can be here in 500 years, right? It's so important that we normalize science and we don't make science scary. It's so important we don't use big words and complicated descriptions to keep people away from science. And that's exactly what we're doing on the podcast because it is literally a part of us. And the only reason why it's not popularized is because we've decided to create this complicated language to exclude people. And we shouldn't do that. We should be more inclusive and we should make it about us because it is us.
Yes. Well said. Now, so where can everyone find you again? Your Instagram, Twitter, the podcast?
So on Instagram, I have a personal account, which is DJ Squared, DJAYSQUARED squared, DJ Squared. And that's just Dr. Janina Jeff, just shortened. A lot of people think I'm a real DJ, although you could catch this playlist anyway. Then for Instagram and Twitter for the podcast are the same, and that's In Those Genes Pod.
Okay, great.
And you can also go on our website, inthosegenes.com, and at some point I will be putting these shirts up.
Oh yeah. So yeah, that's the podcast that I work on, y'all. I'm really excited and so proud to be a part of something, just so great and something so necessary. So thank you to my brilliant friend, Dr. Janina Jeff, for joining me. And yeah, like, comment, and subscribe the video. And I will see y'all for the next episode. And hopefully they will call this motherfucking election. Anywho, I will see y'all later. Bye.
Chris.